on this matter. It is also an offensive to be inattentive while chanting. Every devotee who claims to be Vaishnava must guard against these offenses in order to achieve the desired success of Krishna Prema. Once again, I thank everyone for joining the call today, Bhakti Sangha conference call today. Let us move on to our next session. Which is Srimad Bhagavatam class. May I know who all have joined the call this morning?
Hare Krishna, Padma Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Guru Maharaj ki jai, Pratidasi from Charlotte. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Priti Mataji. Dandavat Pranam Mataji. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much for joining the call, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Guru Maharaj ki jai. This is Arvind Das from Chicago. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Arvind Prabhuji. Dandavat Pranam. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much for joining the call, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Padma Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Guru Maharajas, and all glories to the assembled devotees. This is Tiffany in Pennsylvania. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Tiffany Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much for joining the call, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Shri Guru and Gauranga and all assembled devotees. Yashamati from Chicago.
Hare Krishna, Yashamati Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much for joining the call, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Padma Mataji. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga and to all the assembled devotees. This is Megha from Naperville. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Megha Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much for joining the call, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Padma Mataji, all glories to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharajis. My humble obeisances to you and all the devotees. This is Krishna Kumar Devidasi from
Hare Krishna, Krishna Kumari Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much for joining the call, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Please accept my humble obeisances. This is Sri Hari Radha Devi Dasi from Fairfax, Virginia, Washington. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Sri Hari Radha Devi Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much for joining the call, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Padma Mataji, Dandavat Pranam to you and all Vaishnavas, Srila Prabhupada, Srila Gurudev ki jai, Vrinda.
Hare Krishna, Vrinda Gopika Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much for joining the call, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Padma Mataji. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Guru Maharaj, and all the devotees. This is Kamudiki Dasi from Baltimore. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Kamudiki Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much for joining the call, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you,
Hare
Mataji.
Krishna, Padma Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. This is Vinita Gandharvika Devidasi from Texas.
Hare Krishna, Vinita Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much for joining the call, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. This is Padmasaki Devidasi from Florida.
Hare Krishna, Padmasaki Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much for joining the call, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Padma Mataji. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. All glories to the assembled devotees. This is Anita from Sharjah. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Anita Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much for joining the call, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Padma Mataji. Please accept my humble obeisances to you and all assembled devotees. Guru Maharaj ki jai, Prabhupada ki jai. This is Shivani from Ashram, Virginia. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. I didn't catch your name. Dandavat Pranam, Mataji. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much for joining the call, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Prabhupada, all glories to Guru Maharaj, all glories to Assembled Devotees. This is Mohini Lakshmi from Detroit.
Hare Krishna, Mohini Lakshmi Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much for joining the call, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Guru and Gauranga, and all glories to assembled devotees. This is Charu from Charlotte. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Chalu Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much for joining the call, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to the Guru Maharaj, all glories to the assembled devotees. This is Shiromani Nandarani Devdasi from Krishna Katha. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Sirumani Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much for joining the call, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Padma Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to assembled devotees, all glories to Guru from Haridwar.
Hare Krishna Puja Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much for joining the call, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Padma Mataji, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Please accept my Dandavat Pranams and my Dandavat Pranams to all the devotees on the call. This is Harita from Houston, Texas.
Hare Krishna Harita Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much for joining the call, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Padma Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and all the assembled devotees. This is Indulekha Karna Devi Dasi from Lincoln.
Hare Krishna Indulekha Mataji, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, Dandavat Pranam Mataji. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you, Mataji. Thank you for joining the call. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Dandavat Pranam, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gurudev ki jai. This is Haripriya Devi Dasi from Charlotte.
Hare Krishna Manipriya Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much for joining the call, Mataji.
Hare Krishna Padma Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. I am Sundari Leela Devidasi from Naperville. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Sundari Devi Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much for joining the call, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Padma Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances. Jai Srila Prabhupada. This is Preeti Vilasni Devidasi from Atlanta.
Hare Krishna Preeti Vilasni Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much for joining the call, Mataji. Hare Krishna. Hare Bol Mataji. Welcome to Bhakti Sangha conference call. Today we are fortunate. Welcome to Bhakti Sangha conference call. Today we are fortunate to have His Grace Radhika Vallabha Prabhu to enlighten us on the topic of on Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 6, Canto 6, chapter 1 and verse 40. I don't know, Prabhuji is on the call yet or no?
Not yet, Mataji.
Oh, maybe we can. Oh. Maybe we'll go ahead and chant, or maybe if anybody wants to introduce, please go ahead, Mataji. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare. Prabhu is on. Prabhu is here. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much for giving us your valuable association this morning, Prabhu, and enlightening us on the topic of Srimad Bhagavatam. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Class.
Hare Krishna.
I'll just join just 1 minute. 1 minute.
No problem, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Sorry. Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare.
Can you hear?
I can hear Prabhu. We can hear Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Please accept my humble obeisances, Prabhu. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much, Prabhu, for giving your valuable association this morning and enlightening us the topic of Srimad Bhagavatam, 6th Canto, Chapter 1 and 40. Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Please accept my humble obeisances. Please take over the call, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye. Nashtaprayeshva Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttamashloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nanda Gopa Kumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha. Om Jnanatirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So we are reading from Canto 6, Chapter 1, text number 40. Yamaduta Vuchuhu Veda Pranihito Dharmo Yadharmastad Viparyayaha Vedo Narayana Sakshat Swayambhuriti Sushruma. Yamaduta Vuchuhu, the order carriers of Yamaraj said, Veda, by the 4 Vedas, Sama, Yajur, and Atharva, Pranihita, prescribed, Dharma, religious principles, he indeed, Adharma, irreligious principles, Tat Viparyayaha, the opposite of that which is not supported by Vedic injunctions. Veda, the Vedas, the books of knowledge, Narayana Sakshat, directly the Supreme Personality of Godhead, being the words of Narayana. Swayambhuhu, self-born, self-sufficient, appearing only from the breath of Narayana, not being learned from anyone else. Iti thus. Shushruma, we have heard. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The Yamadutas replied, that which is prescribed in the Vedas constitutes Dharma, the religious principles, and the opposite of that is irreligion. The Vedas are directly the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayana, and are self-born. This we have heard from Yamaraj. Purport. The servants of Yamaraj replied quite properly. They did not manufacture principles of religion or irreligion. Instead, they explained what they had heard from the authority Yamaraj. Mahajano yena gatastha panta. One should follow the Mahajana, the authorized person. Yamaraj is one of the 12 authorities. Therefore, the servants of Yamaraj, the Yamadutas, replied with perfect clarity when they said, Sushruma, we have heard. The members of modern civilization manufacture defective religious principles through speculative concoction. This is not dharma. They do not know what is dharma and what is adharma. Therefore, as stated in the beginning of the Srimad Bhagavatam, dharma projita kaitavotra, dharma not supported by the Vedas is rejected from Srimad Bhagavata Dharma. Bhagavata Dharma comprises only that which is given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Bhagavata Dharma is Sarva Dharman Parityajya Mam Ekam Sharanam Raja. One must accept the authority of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and surrender to Him and whatever He says. That is Dharma. Arjun, for example, thinking that violence was adharma, was declining to fight. But Krishna urged him to fight. Arjun abided by the orders of Krishna, and therefore he is actually a dharmi, because the order of Krishna is dharma. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Vedaischa sarvair aham yeva vedya. The real purpose of Veda, knowledge is to know me. One who knows Krishna perfectly is liberated. As Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Janma karma chame divyam evam yo vetti tatvatah tyaktva deham punarjanma naiti mamyeti sorjuna. One who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode, O Arjuna. One who understands Krishna and abides by his order is a candidate for returning home, back to Godhead. It may be concluded that dharma, religion, refers to that which is ordered in the Vedas, and adharma, irreligion, refers to that which is not supported in the Vedas. Dharma is not actually manufactured by Narayana. As stated in the Vedas, Asya Mahato Bhutasya Nishvasitam Etad Yat Rigveda Iti. The injunctions of Dharma emanate from the breathing of Narayana, the Supreme Living Entity. Narayana exists eternally and breathes eternally. And therefore Dharma, the injunctions of Narayana, also exist eternally. Srila Madhvacharya, the original Acharya for those who belong to the Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya, says, Vedanam Prathamo Vakta Harir Yeva Yato Vibhuhu Ato Vishnatmaka Veda Ityahur Vedavadinaha. The transcendental Vedas emanated from the mouth of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, the Vedic principles should be understood to be Vaishnava principles, because Vishnu is the origin of the Vedas. The Vedas contain nothing besides the instructions of Vishnu, and one who follows the Vedic principles is a Vaishnava. The Vaishnava is not a member of the manufactured community of this material world. A Vaishnava is a real knower of the Vedas, as confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita, Vedescha Sarvair Aham Eva Vedyah. Hare Krishna. Very beautiful verse from the beginning of the conversation between the Yamadutas and Vishnudutas. Vishnudutas asked a question to the Yamadutas in the previous two verses, and Yamadutas are answering, beginning with this particular verse. Veda pranihito dharma. Pranihito means prescribed. Those activities which are prescribed in the Vedas constitute dharma. Tad adharmaha, tad viparyaya hi adharmaha. That which are not prescribed by the Vedas are adharma. So by this answer, the Yamadutas are also indicating who are the candidates for punishment. That means those people who do not perform that which is prescribed, and those people perform those activities which are not prescribed, they are the candidates for punishment. Vihita ananushtanam and avihita anushtanam. Vihita, that which is prescribed, ananushtanam, not observing them. Avihita anushtanam, that which is not prescribed, performing those activities. So when a person performs these two things, then he is a fit candidate for punishment. Adharmastat viparyeha, that which is not prescribed in Vedas are adharma. And then Vedaha Swayambhu, Narayana Sakshat. The Vedas are directly Sakshat Narayana, and Swayambhu, they are born from him. That means the Vedas emanated from the breathing of Vishnu. Iti Sushruma, this we have heard from Yamaraj. That's why Prabhupada says that the Yamadutas, they answered properly based on what they have heard from the Mahajan Yamaraj. And then he talks in the current times how people have manufactured dharma. According to their own concoction, they manufacture dharma. So, it's a very beautiful verse. We will discuss on this topic of dharma in the Vedas, which is basically the theme of this verse. Veda pranihito dharma. So when we talk about the word dharma, how this word dharma is actually explained in different ways actually. What is the definition of dharma? Dharanat dharma ityahu dharmo dharayati prajaha. Yasmat dharayate sarvam trilokyam sacharacharam. So dharma is called as dharma because it supports the entire world. Dharayati prajaha. Dharma comes from the root dhatu dhru dharane. Yasmat dharayate sarvam trilokyam sacharacharam. All the good activities such as yaga, homa, dana, constructing lakes, planting trees, all these activities are called dharma because all these activities, they support the entire world. Trilokyam, they support the entire world and all the moving and non-moving living entities within the world. And what is the way by which we can identify dharma? Manusmriti also says the same thing, which is mentioned in this particular verse. Manusmriti mentions what are the pramanas by which we can know dharma. Vedaha akilaha dharma moolam smriti shilecha tadvidam acharashchaiva sadhunam atmanaha tushtirevacha. The first pramana to know dharma is Vedas. Second pramana is the smritis written by the rishis. The smriti shastra written by the rishis. And the third pramana is the acharashchaiva sadhunam, the conduct of the learned people. And the fourth pramana is the intuition or the mind of the noble souls. Or we can say, yeah, Atmana Tushti Revacha, the mind or the intuition of the noble souls. We will discuss this also. So, if we see in the Mahabharata, just to understand, only when a person understands the dharma properly, then one can understand the gravity of what Krishna speaks at the end of the Gita, Sarva Dharman Parityaja, Mamekam Sharanam Bhaja. Unless a person understands the word dharma properly, then one cannot understand the gravity of what Krishna speaks about the Sharanagati at the end of the Gita. So many people, they don't know actually, they don't have proper understanding of dharma. And then when they speak about Sharanagati, Sarva Dharman Parityaja, so it is just one speaks without realizing the import or the gravity of what he is speaking. So in the Mahabharata, at the end of the Mahabharata, there are 4 shlokas in which these 4 shlokas are considered to be like the conclusion of the Mahabharata. Or the essence of the Mahabharata in the 4 shlokas. So I'll just mention 2 shlokas from that. At the end of the Mahabharata, Vyasadeva says that Urdhva Bahur Virimyaisha Nacha Kaschit Shrunoti Mam Dharmadartascha Kamascha Sakimartam Na Sevyate. So with a raised hand, Vyasadeva is declaring, I am crying aloud. I cry aloud, but nobody is hearing me. It is from dharma that artha and kama arise. Why is dharma not followed? In this way, Vyasadeva is actually expressing his lamentation when he sees the people are not following dharma. Artha and kama arise from dharma, but why people are not following dharma? And then in another verse he says, Na jatu kaman na bayan na lobhat dharmam tyajet jivitasyapi hetoh nityo dharma sukha dukke tvanitye jivo nitya heturasya tvanityaha. He says, not out of passion or fear or lobha, not even for the sake of life, one should abandon dharma. One should not abandon dharma for any reason, either because of kama or out of fear or out of lobha, or even for the sake of one's own life, one should not abandon dharma. Dharma is everlasting, nityo dharmaha. Sukha dukketu anitye, the happiness and misery are only temporary. And the soul is eternal, Jivatma is eternal. And that which embodies it is not eternal. That means the body is not eternal. So, Vyasadeva is saying that one should not abandon dharma for out of any reason. This is how the Mahabharata and Vyasadeva concludes the essence of the Mahabharata here. So in the Mimamsa Shastra, in the Purva Mimamsa, there is Purva Mimamsa and Uttara Mimamsa. The Vedanta Sutra is nothing but the Uttara Mimamsa. Purva Mimamsa talks about the Karma Kanda. The Vedanta Sutra begins with Athato Brahma Jignasa. But the Purva Mimamsa begins with Athato Dharma Jignasa. So in the Purva Mimamsa, we have this sentence, Chodana Lakshanartho Dharmaha. So Chodana Lakshanartho Dharmaha. The Lakshana of Dharma is given. Chodana Lakshanartho Dharmaha means that which is commanded by the Vedic injunctions and which is capable of causing prosperity or happiness is called dharma. 2 points are mentioned, that which is mentioned in the Vedic literatures and that which is capable of causing prosperity or happiness is called dharma. So why the 2 points are mentioned? Because what is the need of the second point? We can understand that which is commanded in the Vedic injunctions. The second point, that which is capable of causing prosperity. Why this point is mentioned? Suppose if the Lakshana of Dharma, Lakshana means definition, if the Lakshana of Dharma did not contain the clause Artha, then there would be a dosha in the definition of Dharma. Because there are certain yajnas that are mentioned in the Vedas to destroy one's enemies. But these yajnas are also said to cause naraka to the person who performs the yajna. So therefore, these yajnas are not caused, they are prescribed in the Vedas, but they will not lead to artha because they may destroy one's enemies, but it will also lead to naraka for the person who performs the yajna. Therefore, the performance of these yajnas, for example, this yajna is Drupada was bound by Arjuna and then he was released by Dronacharya, and Drupada wanted to take revenge against Dronacharya. He wanted to perform a yajna by which he can get a son who can kill Dronacharya, whom he considered as the enemy. So these yajnas are mentioned in the Vedas, but they will not lead to one prosperity because it will lead to naraka. Therefore, they are not considered dharma. Therefore, 2 points are mentioned. Chodana Lakshanaha Arthaha Dharmaha. So that which is preached by the Vedas as a means to attain a prosperity or a fruit that we desire is called dharma. This is another definition of dharma given in the Mimamsa Shastra. And we'll discuss this a little more. So then, after giving this definition, the Mimamsa Shastra says that Veda alone is the pramanam for dharma and nothing else. So the pramana for dharma is Veda alone. Of course, Manusmriti gives 3 more pramanas. The Smriti Shastras given by the rishis, the conduct of the great souls, and the intuition of the great souls, the mind of the great souls. We'll discuss that also. So Veda alone is the pramana for dharma and nothing else. And this is explained in the sutra, Sat Samprayoge Purushasya Indriyanam Buddhi Janma Tat Pratyaksham Animittam Vidyamano Lapa Lambanatvat. upalambanatvat, vidyamanola upalambanatvat. So what does it mean? It means that it explains that how Veda alone is the pramanam for dharma. So one may ask the question that why can't we consider pratyaksha pramana as the pramana for dharma? So therefore the sutra says that satsamprayoge purushasya indriyana buddhi janma tat pratyaksham. So pratyaksha is created only when there is a connection between a sense organ and the sense object. And for such a connection to exist, the object must be present right in front of our senses. The connection with something in the past or something in the future cannot be created right now. So therefore, pratyaksha has the nature that it grasps the objects which exist only in the present. Vidyamana upalamba. Pratyaksha cannot be a pramana to know dharma, because dharma is not something that is present only right now. Dharma is something which is eternal. Dharma is not something which is present only right now. So that which is a means to attain something which we desire, that is called dharma. Like for example, dharma is something eternal. Dharma is not present only in the present. But with the pratyaksha pramana, we can know only things which are present only in the current time. And the second point is that why pratyaksha cannot be the pramana for dharma is that when we perform dharma, the fruit of dharma is something which will be attained sometime in the future, not today. Therefore, the causality between the activity of the something that is present right now. And therefore, it cannot be cognized by using pratyaksha. So therefore, pratyaksha pramana is not the pramana for knowing dharma. And what about the anumana pramana? What about the other pramanas like upamana pramana, arthapati and other pramanas? Because all the other pramanas, anumana and others, they are all dependent on pratyaksha. Therefore, because pratyaksha cannot be the pramana for dharma, and because other pramanas are dependent on pratyaksha, they also cannot be the pramana for dharma. So, and then, so we said that, so therefore, Veda is indeed a pramana for dharma. Now, this we have proved that how other pramanas, pratyaksha, anumana, etc., cannot be the pramana for knowing dharma. So now we have to prove that Veda alone is the pramana for. So since Veda is a text, the validity of the Vedas are based on the reliability of the author. Suppose if the author is known to have the faults, then his text cannot be considered valid. In this world, a human being has 4 faults. Brahma, that means he tends to get bewildered, misconception, or he gets a wrong understanding because of being bewildered. Pramada, a person has inattentive. One has a defect of being inattentive. And Karana Patava, one has imperfect senses. Or Vipralipsa, a person has a tendency to cheat. Or sometimes one defect is mentioned as Ashakti. Ashakti means a person does not have the ability to communicate his thoughts. Sometimes people lack the ability to communicate one's thoughts. This is also a defect. So because when the author is susceptible to these defects, then the text written by the author will also have the faults. So the author is susceptible, when the author who has these 4 defects, he is actually involved with the book written by him in 3 stages. What are the 3 stages? The relationship between the words and their meanings. The relationship between the words and their meanings are man-made. This is the first stage by which the author is involved with the text. Second stage is, even after knowing the meaning of the individual words, the relationship between the sentence and its compound meaning is also man-made. This is the second way by which the author is involved with the book he is written. And the third way is that the stringing the words together and constructing a sentence, that is also done by the author. So because the author is involved with the book in these 3 ways, defects, and because Vedas are a book, Vedas must be written by somebody, and that person has these 4 defects, and that person who has these 4 defects is involved with the book in these 3 ways. Therefore, Vedas must also have been having these defects. Therefore, how can the Vedas be Pramana? This is the objection a person raises. One can raise the objection that Vedas cannot be the Pramana because Vedas must be written by a author, and any author has these 4 defects. And when a person is having the 4 defects, and when he is writing a book, he is connected with that book in these 3 ways. And when he is writing the book, his defects will be transmitted to the book because he is connected to the book in these 3 ways. So therefore, Vedas cannot be the Pramana. Like that, one can give the Purva Paksha argument. One can object by this argument. So how do we refute this? So let us take the first argument. What is the first argument? The relationship between the words and their meanings are man-made. The author is involved with the text in 3 stages. The first stage is that the relationship between the words and their meanings are man-made. So for that, the Mimamsa Shastra replies, Autpattikastu Shabdasya Arthena Sambandha. The relationship between the word and its meaning is actually eternal. It is not man-made. Because the relationship between the word and its meaning is eternal, there is no involvement of a man with the 4 defects in this particular stage. Tasya Jnanam Upadeshaha. That eternal relationship between the word and its meaning is the source for knowledge about Dharma. Avyati Rekascha. There is no man-made relation possible between all the words and their meanings. Arte anupalabde. Because the meanings of the word Vedas are mostly beyond our senses, it is impossible for a man to create the relation between them and the words that refer to them. Tat pramanam badarayanasya anapekshatvat. Therefore, since the relation between the word and its meaning is eternal, the Vedas are a valid source of knowledge about Dharma, because Vedas are not depending on any human being who has the 4 defects. This is the intention of Veda Vyasa. The second argument, so we have, before the second argument, so like anything which we cognize, any cognition is said to be invalid, any cognition is said to be erroneous only when there is a contradictory cognition or a defect is identified in the source of that knowledge. So we have no worldly cognition that the meaning of the Vedas is wrong. Since the Vedas have no creation, they are untouched by the defects that may rest at the source. Therefore, the knowledge that arises from the Vedas is valid. Like in this world, there is no worldly cognition which says that the meaning of the Vedas is wrong. Like cow dung is pure. We have no worldly cognition which proves that the cow dung is impure. And because the Vedas have no creation, they are untouched by the defects of any human being. Therefore, the knowledge from the Vedas is valid. So now we go to the next objection. So the first objection was that the relationship between the word and their meaning must be man-made. So therefore, the Vedas cannot be the pramana because it is a man-made relation between the words and the meaning. So for that, it was clearly refuted by saying that no, the relation between the word and its meaning is eternal. Because there is an eternal relationship, therefore there is no involvement of a man. There is no involvement of a man. So therefore, that we don't have to worry on this particular stage. The man is involved in the relationship between the word and its meaning. And then the second objection was that, okay, the relationship between the word and its meaning may be eternal, but then the relationship between the sentence and its compound meaning, that may be man-made. The relationship between the sentence and its compound meaning, that may be man-made. And because there is an involvement of a man who has the 4 defects, so therefore Vedas cannot be the valid pramana. It cannot be a reliable pramana. Like that, one can give the argument. So in this regard, the answer which is given is that, like for example, just to elaborate this argument, so suppose one may know the meaning of the word Rama. One may know the meaning of the word Maricha and the meaning of the word killing. And then there is a sentence, Ram killed Maricha. So the combination of from these 3 words arises the sentence Ram killed Maricha. But this combination of these 3 words, one may individually know the meanings. But the combination of the three words, this cumulative sentence, the Shabda Samuha, this is something totally new to the listener. And the relationship that the sentence refers to this meaning, that must be man-made. So Ram means the person Rama. Maricha means the person Maricha. Killing means the act of killing. So there is an eternal relationship between the word and the meaning. But the sentences are man-made. And because there is involvement of a man, there must be the involvement of the four defects of the man, and therefore the Vedas cannot be reliable. Like that, one can give an argument. So as a counter argument, Mimamsa Shastra says, Vakyadi Karanam. What does it mean? Means once each word in a sentence helps us recollect its meaning individually, and then when the sentence is formed, if the sentence has the requirement of Akanksha, Yogyata and Sannidhi, so these are some technical terms, like any valid sentence should fulfill these three criteria: Akanksha, Yogyata and Sannidhi. Sannidhi means what? Sannidhi means there should not be unnatural interval between two words. Like suppose I say Ram today, and then tomorrow I say the sentence killed, and then day after tomorrow I say the word Maricha. So Ram killed Maricha, but the first word I said today, I say the word killed tomorrow, and Maricha I told the day after tomorrow. So there is a long gap between the different words. That this cannot be the valid sentence actually, because there should not be inappropriate gap between the two words in a sentence. So therefore, the Sannidhi condition should be satisfied in a sentence. There should not be like an inappropriate gap. Sometimes in making a sentence, a person may take a pause, but that may be just for a few seconds, and then he may say the next sentence. Not that you take a pause for 5 hours and then you speak the next sentence. So, and Yogyata means, suppose I say water, cold water burns, or fire cools. If I say this, fire cools, it is a valid sentence in the sense that there is a subject is there and there is a verb is there. But then, is it proper that fire can cool something or water can heat up something? It's not proper actually. Therefore, the condition of yogyata is not fulfilled. And then there is so for a sentence to be valid, there should be yogyata. It should make sense. And akanksha means expectation. Say, for example, so akanksha, say Ram killed. So when you say Ram killed, then actually the akanksha is that whom did he kill? Although Ram killed is a valid sentence, but the expectation is that whom did he kill? So that object is not mentioned. So because the akanksha is not satisfied, therefore it is not a valid sentence. Therefore, it is not a valid sentence. So therefore, for a valid sentence to happen, these three conditions should be fulfilled: Akanksha, Yogyata, and Sannidhi. So, here the counter argument, the Purva Paksha argument is that, okay, the relationship between the word and the meaning is eternal. But the sentence must be man-made. And because there is an involvement of the man, there will be defects in the Vedas. Like that, the argument is posed. So the counter argument given is that as long as in the sentence there is a Akanksha, Yogyata, and the Sannidhi, these three conditions are satisfied, then the meanings that have been recollected themselves, they will come together and they will convey the compound meaning that Ram killed Maricha. So there is no need for some other man to create a relationship between the sentence and its meaning. Because as long as these three conditions are satisfied, proper, all the Akanksha is satisfied in a sentence, Yogyata is there, Sannidhi is there, then the listener himself is capable of understanding the compound meaning of the combination of the words. So therefore, there is no need of involvement of another man. There is no need of involvement of another man. So therefore, there is no human involvement in this phase also. This is the reply to the second argument. And the third argument is that a man is actually, the second argument is that the relationship between the sentence and its compound meaning is man-made. And for that we gave the reply that there is no involvement of the man in the relationship between the sentence and its meaning, because as long as the Akanksha, Yogyata, and Sannidhi are there, then the listener is capable of understanding the meaning. And the third argument which one may give to object that Vedas cannot be the pramana is that a human being is stringing the words together and he is constructing a sentence. So this act of stringing the words together and constructing the sentence is done by a human being. And when a human being is having the four defects, and his defects will be transmitted in the act of stringing the words together, and therefore there will be defects in the Vedas. Therefore Vedas cannot be accepted as the pramana. And for this, in this particular argument, there are three actually sub-arguments. And you will see all the three responses for all the three sub-arguments. What is the first sub-argument? Vedas are a textbook made up of sentences. So therefore, in the activity of stringing the words together to construct a sentence, there must definitely be the human involvement. And therefore, this will definitely give rise to the possibility of defect in the Vedas. And therefore, the Vedas cannot be the pramana. So therefore, they say that Vedas are paurusheya. It is written by a human being. Since they are in the form of the sentences, like the Mahabharata or any other text, like any other book, we see any book is written by a human being. Vedas are in the form of sentences. Therefore, it must be written by a human being. So for that, the counter argument given is that Veda apaurusheyatva adhikaranam. Now, what is the reply? That the validity of a text is dependent on the reliability of the author. Therefore, an author is indispensable for a text. Like, for example, suppose in a village there is a old well is there. But that old well can still be used by the villagers even if they forget the person who built that well. But in the case of a textbook, the textbook cannot be trusted and used if the author of the textbook is forgotten. Therefore, for the textbook, author is so important. In order to trust the textbook, the author is so important. And if you don't know, if you forget the author of the textbook, then you cannot trust the textbook. If the author is not a reliable person, you cannot trust the textbook. But in the case of the Vedas, so therefore for the textbook, the name of the author is very important because people will trust the textbook based on the author. But in the case of the Vedas, nowhere Vedas mention about the author of the Vedas. When the author of a textbook is so important for a textbook, then why do the Vedas not mention the author? So the Vedas are not written by an author only. So in fact, all the Vedas are just not written by an author. They are just repeated. People just, like, we may hear the Vedas from somebody, but that person heard the Vedas from somebody. That person heard the Vedas from somebody. So the fact that nowhere the author of the Vedas is mentioned, so therefore there is no question of the four defects, because Vedas are not written by a human being who has the four defects. And the second argument is that, but one may say that Vedam Chaike Sannikarsham Purushakya. There are some parts of the Vedas that are named after certain rishis. Like in some Upanishads, different places, they are named after different rishis. Kapalaka, Taittiriya, Pippaladaka, Kataka. So when the names are mentioned, one may say that that means these sections of the Vedas must have been compiled by these rishis, composed by these rishis. Otherwise, the name would not be justified. And therefore, it is written by a human being. Therefore, the four defects must be there. Therefore, Vedas cannot be accepted as the pramana. And what is the counter reply? Akhya pravachanat. That means the naming of the sections of the Vedas after certain rishis does not necessarily mean that they were composed by them. Just as we established that there is no author for the Vedas, we must conclude that the naming must have been based on a particular rishi focusing on learning and teaching that particular section of the Vedas. So the rishi is a mantra drashtara. When the in due course of time, different sections of the Vedas disappear. But then a particular rishi performs austerity and he goes into samadhi, and in his samadhi, those mantras are revealed to that particular rishi. And those mantras, they contain the names of those rishis. Those mantras are not composed by the rishis, rather that Rishi received those mantras and he focused on learning and teaching those mantras. So again, the same point is that Vedas are not composed by a Rishi, they are eternal. And the third argument one may give is that Anitya Darshanacha. Some verses in the Vedas, they talk about non-eternal entities that are created at some point of time and destroyed at some point in time. Therefore, these sections must be composed only after the creation of these entities, and therefore they are not eternal. Therefore, the Vedas must be Paurusheya, man-made. And for this, the counter argument is that Param tu Shruti Samanyam. The Vedas do not talk about non-eternal things. Wherever they appear to talk about non-eternal things, we must find the correct alternate meaning that the Vedas intended. Therefore, since the Vedas are Apaurusheya, there is no involvement of the humans in this phase also. So therefore, the Vedas are a pramanam for dharma. So in this way, the Mimamsa Shastra establishes that dharma means that which is described in the Vedas and that which will produce a desired result. That is called dharma. And the pramana for dharma is Vedas alone. And no other pramana can be the pramana for the dharma. So these 2 points are established in the Mimamsa Shastra. So Yamadutas are also saying that Veda pranihitas dharma. Adharmastat viparyayaha. So let us discuss, I'll discuss, before discussing more about dharma, I'll discuss something about the meaning of the word Veda. So the word Veda has 4 different meanings. So Veda comes from the root dhatu vid. And this vid dhatu has 4 different meanings. The first meaning is that vid sattayam. Sattayam means existence. So the ultimate concept of existence is that there are 3 types of existence. Vartamana kala, bhuta kala and bhavishya kala. So Vedas are existing in the past, present and also in the future. So therefore, Veda, they are called as Vedas. So Veda comes from the root word with sattayam. So in this sense, Veda means that which exists in the past, present and the future. Even during the Pralaya, Vedas don't get destroyed. At the time of Pralaya, the Vedic sound simply becomes unmanifest. The Vedas rest in the heart of the Supreme Lord and they again become manifest at the time of creation. So therefore, the first meaning of the Veda, based on the fact that Veda comes from the root word with sattaya, Veda means that which exists in the past, present and future, that which is eternal. The second meaning of the word Veda, it comes from the root dhatu with jnane. Jnane is knowledge. So there is a shloka, Pratyakshena anumityava yastupayo na buddhyate yenam vidanti vedena tasmad vedasya vedata. That which is incomprehensible through pratyaksha or anumana is understood only by the Vedas. Therefore, Vedas are called Vedas. So Vedas give something unknown to us. that which he cannot know through pratyaksha and anumana. So therefore, the second meaning of the word Veda comes from the vid jnane. So in this meaning, Veda means, Veda is that source of knowledge which gives us knowledge which cannot be obtained through pratyaksha and anumana. Which cannot be obtained through pratyaksha and anumana. Veda actually gives that knowledge. So especially the Vedas, they actually give knowledge about to understand the absolute truth, because this cannot be understood through pratyaksha and anumana. And the third meaning of the word Veda comes from the root dhatu vid vicharane. Vicharane means to analyze. So in this sense, the Veda means the Vedas analyze the nature of material existence. The Vedas analyze the nature of the Jivatma, and they analyze the nature of the Supreme Brahman. And Vedas, they analyze both the Laukika and Alaukika aspect. Laukika Dharma and Alaukika Dharma. So therefore, Veda means that body of textbook which analyzes, which helps us to analyze the nature of the material world, the Jivatma, the Supreme Lord, and the Laukika Dharma and Alaukika Dharma. And the fourth meaning of the word Veda comes from the root word vid labe. Labe means what can we gain from the Vedas. So Vedas, in this sense, the Veda is that body of knowledge which tells us how we can attain happiness in this world, or what all happiness we can gain while living in this world. And Vedas also give information about what we can attain after liberation. So Vedas give information of the Iha Sukha and the Para Sukha. So this is the another import of the meaning of the word Veda. And then there is also another sentence which says that Ananto Vai Vedaha. Vedas are unlimited. So there was a Bharadwaja Rishi. He was studying the Vedas, but he couldn't complete the study of the Vedas. And but his lifespan was coming to an end. So therefore he performed austerities in order to get 100 more years. He performed austerities and pleased Indra and asked for 100 years. So that means 100 years is one lifespan. So Indra gave one more lifetime. He increased his lifespan by 100 years more. And then Bharadwaja Rishi, he again studied, kept on studying. But then he couldn't complete the study. Again he performed austerities and pleased Indra and asked for 100 more years. And again Indra came and gave 100 years. And again Bharadwaja Rishi went on to study the Vedas. But again he couldn't complete. Again he performed austerities. So this went on for few times. So then finally Indra asked, if you want more lifetime, I can definitely give that. But the purpose for which you are wanting more lifetime can never be fulfilled even if I give more and more lifetime. The purpose of you wanting more lifetime is that you want to complete the study of the Vedas. This is your purpose, but this purpose can never be fulfilled even if you ask for more and more lifetime, because Vedas are unlimited. Ananto Vai Vedaha. And then Indra showed 3 big mountains. And then he told Bharadwaja Rishi, what you have learned in your 3 lifetimes, that means in 300 years, is only equivalent to 3 fists of sand from these mountains. But the Vedas are unlimited. So therefore, Vedas are called as Ananto Vai Vedaha. Vedas are unlimited. So let us discuss something about the word dharma. I'll take some more time. Just 1 second. So when we talk about the word dharma, the Shanti Parva of the Mahabharata gives a definition of dharma. Prabhavartaya bhutanam dharma pravachanam kritam. Yes, yasyat prabhava samyukta sadharma iti nishchayaha. So prabhavartaya bhutanam, that means that that which is dharma is declared for the aggrandizement and growth of all creatures. Therefore, what brings on advancement and growth, that is called dharma. In the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, when it describes the origin of creation of the world, there's a word says that sa naiva vyabhajat sa shreyo rupam atsya srijata dharmam tavetat shatrasya shatram yad dharmah tasmat param nasti. So after creating the 4 varnas, Brahma did not feel absolutely certain that things would be all right. So therefore, over and above the creation of the 4 varnas, he created dharma, which is the king over the kings. That means dharma controls the Kshatriyas. There is nothing higher than dharma. It is through this dharma that a weak man hopes to control the stronger man, as one does through the king. And that dharma is truth. So therefore, after creating dharma, then Brahma became satisfied. When Brahma created only the 4 varnas, Brahma did not feel satisfied. But when he created dharma, or when he described dharma, which is above all the people, Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, then he became satisfied. So, quite often in the Shastra, along with the word dharma, there are 2 more words are used. Rita and Satya. So what is the, all these 3 words are interrelated. Rita, Satya and Dharma. What is Rita? Rita means truth in thought. Satya means truth in words. And Dharma means truth in action. Truth in action. So therefore, Rita, Satya and Dharma, all these 3 words are interrelated. Truth in thought, truth in words and truth in Dharma. And further, in the Shanti Parva of the Mahabharata, one more definition of dharma is given. Ahimsartaya bhutanam dharma pravachanam kritam yahasyad ahimsa sanyukta sadharma iti nishchayaha. That means dharma is also so called because it maintains all the creatures. And in fact, all the creatures are kept up righteousness. Therefore, dharma is what is capable of upholding all the creatures. So here, ahimsartaya bhutana. Dharma is enunciated for the sake of non-violence towards all beings. That means whatever is associated with the non-violence is dharma. So there is also mentioned that ahimsa paramo dharma. So therefore we find in the scriptures when Lord Ram sacrifices his comforts and happiness, his happiness and his kingdom, and he does not speak a single word in anger, and he does not entertain any anger even in his mind. That is how he practiced the dharma of obedience to the father. And Sita Devi, even in her distress of abandonment by Ram, she does not say a word in anger, but prays that she should be born again to become the wife of Ram. And at the end of the Yaksha Prashna episode in the Mahabharata, Yaksha is asking Yudhishthira Maharaj that I can restore one among your 4 brothers. You can choose only one brother. You can, like that Yaksha is asking. And Yudhishthira Maharaj chooses Nakula in preference to Bhimasen or Arjuna. And Yaksha asks, why did you choose Nakula? So at that time, Yudhishthira answers that Bhima, Arjuna and myself are the sons of Kunti. Nakula and Sagadeva are the sons of Madri. Among the Kunti sons, I am surviving. So therefore, if you can restore one of these, I want one among the Madri sons to survive. Therefore, I am asking for Nakula to be restored. So at that time, Yaksha extols this attitude of Yudhishthira by saying that Anrishamsya paro dharmaha. Kindness towards all without discrimination, that is the highest dharma. He actually glorifies this. And then another aspect of dharma is that like many times in our life, a person does not want to practice one's dharma because the other party is not performing his duties. Many times our performance, our duty is dependent on the fact whether the other person is performing his duty or not. But when we see the scriptures, whether the other person is performing one's duty or not, we are supposed to perform our duty. That is how the Shastras describe. For example, that like for example in the Ramayana, that when Ram was supposed to go to the forest, it was only told that Ram should go to the forest. The banishment of Sita does not form part of Dashratha's pratigna to Kaikeyi. And Vasishtha Rishi specifically states that it was the right of Sita to occupy the Yuvaraja's throne when her husband Ram was banished to the forest. So Vasishtha quotes a Shastra and mentions it. In one sense, like Sita had the right to occupy the Yuvaraja's throne. But Sita tells that, but I don't want to, I will be there wherever my husband Ram is there. I will be there wherever my husband Ram is there. So in the sense, what we can see is that generally in the material world, in the modern world, people are concerned more with the rights. They are hardly concerned with their responsibilities. But what in the dharmically sensitive people, they are concerned more with the responsibilities than with the rights. And also dharmically sensitive people, they will perform their duty irrespective of the fact that the other person is performing the duty or not. It is not dependent on them. And that we can see many characters in the scriptures. And then in the Dharma Shastras, they describe 6 aspects of Dharma. Varna Dharma, for example, Varna Dharma is what a Brahmana should avoid, should not drink liquor, or what a Brahmana should do, a Kshatriya should do, Varna Dharma. And then there is Ashrama Dharma. What are the duties of a Grahastha, Vanaprastha? And the third is Varnashrama Dharma. That means when the particular member of a Varna is in the particular ashrama, what is his Varnashram Dharma? The Varnashrama Dharma may vary from person to person. A Brahmana in the Brahmachari ashram, he may have certain Varnashram Dharma. A Kshatriya in the Brahmachari ashram, he may have a slightly different Varnashram Dharma. And the fourth is Guna Dharma. Guna Dharma is how the king should protect his subjects. And the fifth is Nimitta Dharma. Nimitta Dharma is about the Prayaschitta one should observe when he does not practice what he is supposed to practice, or when he practices which is not supposed to practice. Vihita Anushtanam, Avihita Anushtanam. In both cases, a person is supposed to Prayaschitta. So this is the fifth aspect of Dharma Shastra. And the sixth aspect of Dharma Shastra is Sadharana Dharma. So Sadharana Dharma means there are certain dharmas which are meant for all the varnas and all the ashramas. For example, truthfulness or patience, self-control, purity of mind, body. Bhagavatam 7th canto 11th chapter also describes the Sadharana Dharma. But as I mentioned previously, that when we are observing a certain dharma, suppose if it is going to lead to the, suppose when we absolutely practice the Sadharana Dharma, that means when a person speaks the truth, observes truthfulness in all circumstances, absolutely. But in particular circumstances, if it is going to lead to the harm of another individual, if it is going to lead to the harm of another society, then that absolute ideal should not be adopted. So that is why the definition of dharma is that which brings about the growth and aggrandizement of all living entities of the society. Dharma is that which will not cause violence to other living entities. So there was a Brahmana who was always speaking the truth, but in a particular circumstance, when an innocent person was hiding, who was chased by some thieves, and the thieves came and asked him, "Did you see this person?" And he spoke the truth, and then the thieves actually killed that person, killed that particular cow. Although he spoke the truth, the result of the truth was that it resulted in the violence to the cow. Therefore, he got implicated in adharma. And also, Shastras say that dharma is very sukshma, it is very subtle. And tarko apratishta shrutayo vibhinna naiko muni yasya matam pramanam dharmasya tattvam nihitam guhayam mahajano yena gatasapanta. So dharma is something, there is no finality to intellectual reasoning. Simply by intellectual analysis, we cannot understand dharma. And many times the Shastras will be conflicting with each other about the practice of dharma. And many munis, they will give contradictory opinion. And therefore, dharma is hidden and subtle. And the only way to know dharma is to follow the way of the Mahajanas. Mahajano yena gatassa panta. And then another way by which we can know the dharma is the satisfaction of one's own conscience. That is why I mentioned in one of the beginning verses about the 4 pramanas of dharma: Vedas, Smriti Shastra, conduct of the great souls, and intuition or the mind of the great souls. This intuition or the mind of the great souls can also be seen as the satisfaction of the heart, satisfaction of the good people. Satisfaction. That is why when Draupadi was brought by Arjuna, at that time Kunti, without even seeing Draupadi, Kunti said that share amongst you equally. And then they were like, Pandavas were puzzled. How can we share a woman equally among ourselves? So at that time, all of them were looking at Draupadi, and Yudhishthira Maharaj says that all of us should get married to Draupadi. And he gives the reasoning. This thought is coming in my mind, and my mind can never think of adharma. And my mind can never think of adharma. Therefore, this must be correct according to dharma. Therefore, all of us should get married to Draupadi. So this is what even Kalidasa says, that Satam hi sandeha parveshu pramanastat karana pravrite. A common person who has different anarthas, he cannot say that because it is coming in my mind, it has to be correct. But in the mind of a great soul, when they say that because it is coming in my mind, it has to be dharma. Dushyanta also said, when he met Shakuntala, my mind can never think of adharma. Because I am getting attracted towards you, I knew that you cannot be the daughter of a Brahmana. You have to be the daughter of a Kshatriya. So therefore, the mind of a great soul is also the inner satisfaction of the great soul. That is also the pramana of dharma. So that is why in the Mahabharata, when we see Bhishma Dev's decision, Bhishma Dev, he sided, although he always loved the Pandavas, but Bhishma Dev fought for the Kauravas. And when Bhishma Dev was asked, why did you actually why are you fighting for the Kauravas? Bhishma said that man is the slave of the material interests, but material interests are not the slaves of anyone. Therefore, I have been bound by the Kauravas through material interest. So this answer does not seem to be entirely satisfying. Because although Bhishma Dev made the decision to fight for the Kauravas, he was never satisfied in his heart. So therefore, that choice of Bhishma Dev to fight for the Kauravas is not according to Dharma. And this satisfaction of the heart, Prabhupada mentions in the first canto, 4th chapter, when Vyasadeva became dissatisfied after writing all the Vedic literatures, then he approached Narada Muni. The purport Prabhupada says that ultimately one has to look for one's own satisfaction of the deepest core of one's heart. Because Vyasadeva was not satisfied at heart, there is something which he made a mistake. Because of that, he didn't get satisfied. Because he didn't describe the glories of the Bhagavan and the glories of pure devotional service in an exclusive way. Therefore, he was not satisfied at his heart. So therefore, Bhagavatam says that Savai Pumsam Parodharmo Yato Bhakti Radokshaje Aheituki Apratihata Yayatma Suprasigati. The deepest satisfaction of the heart will be obtained when a person practices pure unalloyed devotional service to Krishna. So on a pious life, when a person practices one's duties without expectation of return, one will get satisfaction. But the deepest satisfaction of the core of one's existence, that cannot be obtained simply by performing one's duties. That satisfaction can be obtained only when a person performs unalloyed devotional service to the Lord. So therefore, this pramana, the satisfaction of one's conscience, that is also the pramana for dharma. And then lastly, like one of the great commentator of the Mahabharata, he explains the essence of the Mahabharata, because Mahabharata is the book on dharma. But he explains the essence of the Mahabharata at the end of, in his commentary, he says that the petty-minded people pursue dharma for the sake of the wealth. But high-minded persons pursue dharma for the sake of the purification of the mind. And Mahabharata says that dharma should be performed only for the sake of dharma and not for the sake of enjoyment and desires. The only satisfaction is that one has done one's duty. And the reward of dharma is dharma itself. It is with this background that one should actually perform dharma. That is the conclusion of the Mahabharata. But Srimad Bhagavatam takes the conclusion to an even much higher level about the purpose of practicing dharma. Dharmasya apavargasya nartho arthaya pakalpate nartasya dharmaikantasya kamalobhaya hi sritah kamasya nendriya preetir labho jiveta yavata jivasya tattva jignasa nartho yascheha karmabhihi. So all the occupational engagements, all dharmas are certainly meant for the apavarga. They are meant for the ultimate liberation. That means love for Krishna. And they should never be performed for material gain. And one who is engaged in the ultimate occupational service should never use material gain to cultivate sense gratification. And life's desires should never be directed towards sense gratification. One should only desire a healthy life or a self-preservation, because a human life is meant for Brahma Jignasa, to inquire about the absolute truth, and nothing else should be the goal of one's works. So Mahabharata talks about dharma should be performed only for the sake of dharma, but Srimad Bhagavatam takes this to a much higher level, that the dharma is ultimately meant for the ultimate liberation, apavarga. And therefore, this episode of this conversation between the Yamadutas and the Vishnudutas, Yamadutas will speak from the point of view of the different dharmas of this world. How Ajamil broke so many dharmas and how he did not perform the prayaschitta, therefore he deserves to be punished in hell. But Yamadutas, they are not aware of the understanding of dharma from the point of view of the Bhagavata dharma, that is the principles of dharma by which the Supreme Lord is satisfied. And Vishnudutas will give that understanding about the principles of the Bhagavata dharma. And when Ajamil, when he hears this conversation in which both the ordinary dharmas and the Bhagavata dharmas are discussed between the Yamadutas and Vishnudutas, then the Ajamil will come to his senses. And we will see that in the future verses of the 6th canto. So to summarize what we discussed about the 4 meanings of the word Veda. We discussed from the Purva Mimamsa about the definition of dharma. Chodana Lakshanartho Dharma, that which is prescribed in the Vedas and that which will give a desired result, that is dharma. And then we discussed the pramana for dharma. In that regard, we discussed how the pratyaksha pramana, anumana pramana, etc., they cannot be the pramana for the dharma. And then we discussed how Vedas are the pramana for the dharma. And in that regard, we discussed the 3 Purva Paksha arguments given by the opposite party, that why Vedas cannot be the right pramana. We discussed the 3 Purva Paksha argument and the refutations of those 3 arguments. And also, of course, in the 3rd argument, we saw some 3 sub-arguments. And then we proved that how Vedas are the pramana. And we also discussed other verses from the Manusmriti about the definition of dharma, the pramana for dharma given by Manu, the 4 pramanas, and then we discussed some more understanding of dharma from the Mahabharata, and we discussed, then finally we concluded that what is the purpose of dharma according to the Mahabharata, and what is the purpose of dharma according to Srimad Bhagavatam. Hare Krishna. Sorry
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Hare Krishna Prabhuji. It's a power packed with all the Shastra evidences of Veda and Dharma and Mimamsa, Purvamimamsa and Uttarvimamsa, all those things. Prabhu. This is beyond my this thing, but so wonderfully you explained everything so in so detail, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna Prabhu. So thank you so much. Anybody has any questions, please? Prabhuji, do you have time for questions, Prabhuji?
If there are some questions, okay.
Yeah, so devotees, if you have any questions, please go ahead and unmute yourself and ask.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, please accept my humble obeisances. Thank you so much for such a fantastic class. It was really so interesting that it was impossible to move. Prabhu, thank you for covering this point that we understand Dharma through Vedic literature, and how Vedas are always aparushaya, how they are eternal, and different definitions of Dharma, and how Dharma is also in one sense the most, it is defined to be the sustenance of everything. So thank you for all the definitions and the analysis, right from the arguments that can be posed and how you can defeat those arguments. I have 2 questions, Prabhu. The first one was about this, when we talk about the Purva Pakshas, whatever arguments they had, right, about Veda being pramana, they did talk about how about the words and the sentence formation. What if it is done by a mundane person, then it is bound to be wrong. And then how we argue saying that everything is, the word has to define a particular meaning, and then how the sentence formation should be done, and then finally how everything is aparushaya. We discussed this whole thing. But my point here is, yes, Veda is pramana, we can understand that, but ultimately on a practical level, when we there is still scope for interpretation in one sense. What I'm asking is, if the shabda as such is perfect, everything is fine, but on a practical level, when we are applying what the Veda has to give us and come up with different philosophies, we derive that understanding from the Vedanta Sutras. And these Vedanta Sutras are all very short aphorisms. So different acharyas, they come and they put forth their arguments and their, in one sense, quote unquote, interpretations or understanding. That's how we derive different philosophies. And those different philosophies are the actual practical application of the understanding of the Vedas, right? So now again, the problem of interpretation seeps in. So how do they counter argue this?
Yeah, in the case of the interpretation, we accept those interpretations which is in line with the Mula. There are Mula Shloka, Mula Grantha. We accept those commentaries which does not which do not contradict with the Mula Grantha, the original Grantha. So that is why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told Sarvam Bhattacharya that he said Vedanta Sutra is like the sun actually, but your explanations are like the cloud which cover the sun. What he said was that essentially your interpretations, your explanations are they are contradicting with the Mula in different places. So therefore, when we talk about the comment, that is why there's a great importance given for keeping the connection with the Mula Shloka of any Grantha. when people write commentaries, the commentaries should closely follow that, should help us to understand the Moola better. And even when they try to elaborate when they try to explain the Moola Shloka, they should actually give the proper logic of that explanation. So that is why, if we see, there are two kinds of Shastras, Nirnaya Shastras and Nirnayaka Shastras. So what is Nirnaya Shastras? Nirnaya Shastras is those Shastras which present the conclusion. Nirnayaka Shastras is that those Shastras which give the method of analyzing the Shastras to come to the right conclusion. So in the Vedic literature, both the Nirnaya Shastras are there and Nirnayaka Shastras are also there. For example, Mimamsa Shastra and Nyaya Shastra, Vyakarana, Nirukta, Chandas, Mimamsa Shastra, Nyaya Shastra, Vyakarana, Nirukta, they are all Nirnayaka Shastras. Because these Shastras, they help us to, they give the right method to analyze the Vedic literature so that we can come to the right conclusion. Mimamsa Shastra, for example, there is a give the meaning of Dharme pramiyamane tu vedena karanatmana iti kartavyata bhagam mimamsa purayishyati. So when we try to create something using a tool, a procedure is required. So suppose to cut a piece of a wood using an axe, there is a procedure for cutting a wood. That means we need to lift the axe upwards and then put pressure to strike the wood. And then when you do this repeatedly, when you follow this procedure repeatedly, then the wood will be cut. So this procedure is called iti kartavyata in Sanskrit. So just like for cutting of a wood, there's a particular procedure. You need a tool of axe, and not only you need the tool, you also need a procedure to use the tool in the wood. So similarly, when we want to attain the knowledge of
I think Prabhuji's bandwidth is low. I think it cannot hear him. Hare Krishna Prabhuji, you are not audible, Prabhu.
I think
I see this connection is very, very bad. It froze.
Prabhuji got disconnected.
Maybe he'll join again, Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Can you hear?
Yes, Prabhu, we can hear you now.
Prabhu.
Okay. So a simple example, suppose you want to cut a wood and the tool for it is the axe, and there's a procedure for using the axe. So in order to achieve the purpose of cutting the wood, you need two things. One is the tool and then the procedure for using the tool. So similarly, here our purpose is to understand Dharma, because a human being is supposed to practice Dharma. If a person does not practice Dharma, then he is an animal. So our purpose is to practice Dharma. And the tool for understanding Dharma is the Vedas. But then, what is the procedure to understand the Vedas? and that procedure is described in the Mimamsa Shastram. So if we use the Vedas, and if we analyze the Vedas by using the procedure mentioned in the Mimamsa Shastra, then we will get the knowledge of Dharma.
Yes, Prabhu.
So therefore, the method of interpretation should be according to the method described in the Shastra. And when we interpret the Shastra, it should not contradict the Mula. It should be in accordance with the Mula. And the procedure should also be in accordance with the method described in the Shastra. Mimamsa Shastra describes, to understand the Vedic sentences, it gives actually 6 types of pramanas: Shruti, Linga, Vakya, Prakarana, Samakya, and one more thing actually. So this method of interpretation is also very scientific, and so that is the way to understand the Shastra.
Thank you, Prabhu. That was very clear. Thank you very much. Prabhu, one more question. When you were talking about dharma, we said a few points while defining while giving different definitions for dharma. One point that struck to me is that the ways of dharma are very subtle, right? So this is something that you did mention, and that's why dharma becomes complicated. So in fact, we also saw in the story of Bhishma when when Draupadi questioned him in the Kuru Sabha, that's one thing that he says, oh, the ways of dharma are very subtle. Because when she asks, did he first lose himself and then lose me? That is when Bhishma says the ways of dharma are very subtle. It's very difficult for me to say at this point in time. At the same time, we also say that we accept dharma based on following the Mahajanas. Now, Bhishma is a Mahajana, and intuition we spoke about the way being subtle. At the same time, we talk about Bhishma being a Mahajan. So there's a lot. It seems, of course, it should not be, but it appears like there are a lot of contradictions here. So is there something that soars over the other? Like, for example, my question is intuition supposed to be higher than the other ways of accepting what dharma is? I hope you got my question.
Yeah, Mahajano Enagata Siddhanta. This question is asked. Yeah, Bhishma is a Mahajan. He's a great pure devotee of Krishna. The 12 Mahajan described in the 6th canto. They are all actually authorities on the Bhagavata Dharma, the pure devotees of the Lord. One of the characteristics of the Bhagavata Dharma, the fundamental characteristic of devotional service is that it is independent. Just like Krishna is independent, Bhagavata Dharma, pure devotional service is also independent. So, Bhishma, or for that matter, any pure devotee, they are pure devotees of Krishna, but at the same time, Bhishma definitely made a mistake. He made many mistakes, but not in the Bhagavata Dharma, but in the different other aspects of Dharma.
Nice, Prabhu. Yeah.
Bhishma, they decided to divide the kingdom. He did not answer the question of Draupadi. He did not protect Draupadi. He sided with the Kauravas. Many mistakes he made. But that does not make him not a pure devotee, because pure devotion, by definition, it is actually independent of everything. And even Yudhishthira Maharaj is a pure devotee. But Yudhishthira Maharaj definitely made a mistake in the gambling match. He's taking Draupadi. He was so infatuated with that gambling, and he puts Draupadi as a stake, and he did not protect Draupadi. But does that mean he's not a pure devotee? So he's a pure devotee, but he definitely made a mistake. Therefore, through these great personalities, the Shastra, Krishna is teaching us Krishna is teaching us that how, for example, through Yudhishthira Maharaj, Shastras are teaching how gambling is such an activity that gambling can pollute the mind even of such a great person like Yudhishthira Maharaj. And Bhishma Dev's, through Bhishma Dev, Krishna is teaching. Even if a great personality like Bhishma Dev, powerful personality like Bhishma Dev, be on the side of Adharma, still Adharma cannot win. So Bhishma Dev is definitely an authority on the Bhagavata Dharma. But at the same time, yeah, these mistakes are there, and those mistakes are for us to learn. In the ultimate issue, they are instruments in the hand of Krishna. But at the same time, through the activities of these great souls, we can learn different aspects of dharma in our own life: punishment, mercy, all these aspects. Because Bhishma Dev was did not punish the Kauravas. Bhishma Dev, it is said that Bhishma Dev, why did he not answer the question of Draupadi? Is that, like some Acharya says, that because Bhishma Dev was maintained by the Kauravas, so therefore his discrimination got contaminated because of being maintained by the Kauravas. So there is something called as a there are different kinds of dosha in the food. Sthana dosha, nimitta dosha, like the different dosha in the food. So when you actually eat the food which is earned by performing adharma, when the money is earned by performing adharma, then that food also gets contaminated, and by eating that food, one sense of discrimination will be lost. So Bhishma Dev's sense of discrimination was lost. Therefore, he couldn't answer the question of Draupadi. But at the same time, he remains a Mahajan on the Bhagavata Dharma, because he never compromised with his pure devotional service to Krishna.
Very nice. Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you for discriminating the two, and very clear answer. Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. And really, really beautiful analysis, Prabhu. It was a very interesting class. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. Sureshwar Sham Prabhuji, please go ahead and ask your question.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Dandavat Pranam, Prabhu. Very, very, very nice class, Prabhu. Very inconceivable, Prabhu. And very challenging to the intellect to think a lot, so many definitions and all that, Prabhu. So, Prabhu, I have two questions, Prabhu. One first question is, you were saying about how Vedas become unmanifest. They go back to the heart of the Supreme Lord, right? And so one question I have, Prabhu, always, when we were reading, 18th chapter of 5th canto, it said that the Vedas were stolen by Hayagriva. Right. So what does that mean, Prabhu, when they are stolen? Means
they are actually previously the Vedas are there only in the sound format. They were not in the form of the books. Hayagriva stole the Vedas from the heart of Brahma. It's something like a very hacking to steal the money of somebody's money from the bank account. So this is some kind of stealing on a very subtle level, hacking on a subtle level. He stole the knowledge from the heart of Brahma, or he stole the knowledge, and that is what it means. On a subtle level, he stole. Although the Vedas were there only in the sound format, people forgot the knowledge of the Vedas. He stole the knowledge.
Prabhu, any analogy or something to understand, Prabhu, like how he stole like that? Like you were saying, the gross way money, but this one is little difficult to understand, Prabhu, how he stole in a sound format.
It's like people had knowledge of the Vedas in their mind. In their memory, they had all the knowledge of the Vedas. But suddenly they forgot that. From their memory, the knowledge was stolen actually. In their memory and their They forgot all the verses. So how they could do, he could do in a very subtle way.
Okay. So thank you, Prabhu. So Prabhu, one more question. You were mentioning that you will cover the Sarva Dharman Parityaja verse, Prabhu. Like you said, you will. I don't think you covered that part, Prabhu. How did you cover, Prabhu? Did I miss it?
No. What I just mentioned is that only when we understand Dharma is how glorious, and then when Krishna says Sarva Dharman Parityaja Mamekam Sharanam Raja, then we can truly appreciate the importance of Sharanagati. Because, like for example, just one. So no, what I mentioned was that, like for example, like in the modern times, we may not even, people may not be knowing the value of Dharma, and then when we come to Krishna consciousness, oh, Sarva Dharman Parityaja Mamekam Saranam Raja, you can give up all the dharmas for pleasing Krishna. So we may think, oh, it is so easy because we are anyway used to not practicing different dharmas, different duties. And then one may get, say, Krishna consciousness as an excuse for avoiding the duties also. But when we see in the Vedic society, society was so sensitive about practicing their dharma. And in such a society, when they give up certain dharmas for the sake of surrendering to Krishna, that is a very big decision. Just like the gopis say, suppose to leave in the middle of the night to go to the forest to meet Krishna, that is something like unthinkable in the society prevalent there. But they did not practice their Sri Dharma. They gave up their Sri Dharma for the sake of surrendering to Krishna. So only when we understand the gravity of, when we understand the glory of practicing Dharma, and then when we give up something, such a high thing as practicing Dharma for the sake of pleasing Krishna, then we truly understand the import of how high is the platform of Sharanagati. So that's what I meant, Sarva Dharman Parityaja. In order to understand Sarva Dharman Parityaja, we have to first understand how great is the practice Dharma. Because the Mahabharata, after 1 lakh verses, it is Vyasadeva is pleading that please practice Dharma. Why people are not concerned about practicing Dharma? Dharma should not be given up at any cost, either out of kama, lobha, this thing. So that is the ultimate conclusion of Vyasadeva at the end of the Mahabharata. So that shows the importance of Dharma. And then when the Gita at the end, Krishna says, Sarva Dharman Parityaja Mamekam Sharanam Raja, one can sacrifice Dharma for the sake of Krishna. So therefore, before understanding this statement, we have to understand how Dharma is glorious, that Dharma should never be given up even when there is a threat to one's life. It is a very high statement actually. So when we understand the importance of the glory of Dharma, then we can truly appreciate Sarva Dharman Parityaja. That's what I meant.
Okay. So here the Lord is saying to give up Dharma for Bhagavad Dharma, right, Prabhu?
Yeah, when the lower dharmas are in conflict with pleasing Krishna, so at that time, one can give up the lower dharmas for the sake of serving Krishna, to execute Krishna's will. So the system of dharma, it's also the system established by Krishna. So normally, one is supposed to practice, balance one's Bhagavata dharma, devotional service to Krishna, along with one's all the other duties. But when there is a conflict between them, then one chooses the Bhagavata dharma over the Varnashram dharma. So that is what Sarvadharman teaches.
Thank you very much, Prabhu. Dandavat Pranam, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Wonderful answer. Jyoti Mataji, please go ahead, Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranam, Prabhuji. Your teachings today was like blessings for me because I have never heard anything about Vedas. It was really true blessing. So I'm really eternally grateful to you. Okay, I have understood because I have some intelligence that is the grace of God. I don't know why God has given so much of intelligence. Many questions arises, and then I really don't know how I do the justice with the intelligence. My question is, if we know the Vedas, or because of the intelligence I can understand, but those who are so, when we talk to a person who is not that literate, or who is not in the bhakti, or whom we are supposed to, when we interact and someone has some curiosity, then we come across one or the other way about the Vedas. At that time, how I should connect to them as an layman term, to give them a little bit of what I know, because when it comes to a mutual understanding or a conversation, then this intelligence is not making an sense. So, so my question is, so could you please guide me?
Yeah. When we interact, definitely, like for example, there is a beautiful verse which says that Aneka Shastram, there are so many Shastras are there. Bahu Veditavyam. And there are so many meanings for each word. And so many commentaries are there. And Alpasya Kala, and the time we have very short. On top of that, Bhagavasya Vigna, we have many obstacles in our life.
Yes.
So many Shastras, so many explanations, short time and many obstacles. Then what to do? Tat Sara Bhutam Upasitavyam. To take the essence of the Shastra and worship that essence. So therefore, when we interact with the people, so Vedic literature is also huge actually. But the essence is there in the Bhagavad Gita and the Srimad Bhagavatam. So when we try to understand Bhagavad Gita properly, we can definitely address the people's queries through Bhagavad Gita, through Srimad Bhagavatam. Of course, when we have more knowledge, we can try to give some examples or this thing from the Mahabharata, Ramayana. But definitely the essence, Gita and the Bhagavatam, that is sufficient in one sense. Because on a practical level, how much we can read. So, and as we interact with people, then we will actually, like it is said that like one person was giving this one, a trained, like an experienced police officer. When somebody introduces an experienced police officer, how will they introduce? So this police officer, he had an experience of 25 encounters in his life. So they will introduce in that way. So when a person has gone through 25 encounters, then like he has handled different unpredictable situations of dealing with the criminals, and then he has that makes him experienced. So similarly, when we try to preach, we try to interact with the different conceptions of the people, and at that time, that makes us think how to actually address these persons thoughts, how to address these person's concerns, how to remove the misconceptions of this person. And in the process of actually doing that, our brain becomes more sharpened, our spiritual intelligence becomes sharpened. And so therefore, first of all, we try to understand Gita and the Bhagavatam, Bhagavatam, or other, according to our capacity. It's not that everyone is expected to be very scholarly or something. According to our capacity, yeah, we try to understand. And everybody can preach in different levels. Like there are so many different types of audience. Even according to our knowledge and this one, we can also share with some people some stories and this thing. And that way we can preach.
Prabhuji, and the second question, as we are in Kali Yuga and we are facing so many situations and obstacles and hindrance, so this means that we are already adharma because I am nowhere clear to or nearer to dharma because one or the other mistake happens. So we are already so much fallen. I am so much fallen to follow the practice, or even the chanting is not happening up to the mark. Even if I do the 32 rounds, it's not up to the mark. I feel some other way I'm distracted for doing any devotional service. So then what is the use of my intelligence which is trying to grasp the knowledge of Vedas or Bhagavatam? Means how I should look into this, because I always see there is a loophole and I can just jump through my intelligence, but I am not able to jump in my actions. So could you please guide on?
We have to put endeavor. We have to put endeavor both in our personal practice and also in our helping others. We try to. We are not perfect. We all of us have shortcomings. So we try to improve in our personal practice also. And our preaching is also like a sadhana. Preaching is also like a sadhana because by trying to share with others, we get the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So, yeah, and by that we can make more advancement than by only doing sadhana. So both should go hand in hand, like just like when you are drawing water from the well should also be connected to some reservoir of water nearby. So the more you draw water from the well also gets filled because of its connection to the reservoir. So we also try to focus on our sadhana and the practice. At the same time, try to explain to the people according to our understanding, according to our realization.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasant class. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, in chat window also, Laltang Mataji is a power-packed class and with so many wonderful class. She's very analytical and wonderful class. Thank you. Mataji, Vinita Mataji, I see one more hand. Avinta Mataji or?
I think Priti Vilasini is.
Priti Vilasini Mataji. Okay, she
her hand up, yeah.
Yeah, anybody else who has any questions?
Mataji, may I speak here?
Sure, Prabhu. Please go ahead, Prabhu.
I don't have a question to start with. I just want to, and I want to thank Radhika Vallabha Prabhu for giving this kind of postdoctoral in-depth definition of dharma and all that. But, with my limited intelligence and all that, I just want him to verify what I understood is correct or not. Because, I put this in simply practical way. What I understand was because Yamaduta said, Veda pranihito hi dharma. So the dharma started with Veda, right? And Veda, Bhagavan Krishna says, Vedascha sarvair aham eva vedyo. So we need to know Bhagavan Krishna. How can I know Bhagavan Krishna? Atha bhaktya mama bijanati yavan yaschasmi tattva. So ultimately, savai punsam paro dharma. So we come to Bhagavan Krishna's bhakti, and that bhakti also in Kali Yuga, as Mataji mentioned, we are falling down so much then. And then also, Narad Muni has given some, kind of solace to us that the dharma bhakti apakvato patet tato yadi yatra ko abhadra vumshakim. So at this stage in my life, and in Kali Yuga and whatever like that, with all the deep faults, and I'm trying to do some bhakti, which is also not perfect. And it is what to speak of Tivran Bhakti, which is a Kam Kar Sarva Kamava Moksha Kamudal. So whatever little bhakti we are doing, and under the auspices of Sri Prabhupada Maharaj and all Mahajanas. So whatever little we put, and Bhagavan Krishna has given us Swalpapi Dharma Setraito Masto Varai. So we will continue doing this, and getting this kind of satsang is sadhu sang sarva siddhi hai. So in that understanding, I'll continue attending very exalted Vaishnavas like you, who give such in-depth discourses to us. Where do I have time to listen to all this in-depth knowledge? I have no means to even understand a part of what I am listening. But this is Bhagavan Krishna's mercy, Sri Prabhupada's mercy, that he has created this such a opportunity for fallen souls to get out of birth and death and get Bhagavan Krishna's love. Thank you very much again for allowing me to speak. Haribol Mataji.
Haribol, Prabhu. Haribol.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. And if nobody has any questions, maybe we can give obeisances to Prabhuji. Wonderful, wonderful class, Prabhuji. One more time. So analytical, so much in depth. It's beyond my capacity. At least I'm so fallen. But it's a wonderful class, Prabhuji. Thank you so much. Please come again and please give your association, Prabhu. Vancha kalpatarubhya sindhubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Sri Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Prabhupada ki jai. Radhika Vallabha Prabhu ji ki jai.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Wonderful class.
Very
Please share your notes,
class.
Prabhuji.